para, I have over here, Yud-Beis test. Okay, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
The saddle baskets and the tarbal bed, and the horn of a coffin, and the horns of travelers, and the ring of kings, and the baskets of the launderers, and the garment that is stitched with kilayim are considered a connection for tuma, but not considered a connection for sprinkling. The cover of a kettle that was attached to a chain, Beis Shammai says it is considered a connection for tuma, but not considered a connection for sprinkling. Beis Hillel says if one sprinkled on the kettle, the cover has been sprinkled upon as well. If he sprinkled on the cover, the kettle has not been sprinkled upon. All are eligible to sprinkle except for a tumtum and a Aphrodite, and a woman and a minor who does not have awareness. A woman assists him and he sprinkles, and she holds the water for him, and he dips and sprinkles. If she held his hand even during the sprinkling, it's invalid. If one dipped the honey, his up by day and sprinkled by day, it is valid. By day and he sprinkled at night and he sprinkled by day, it is not valid. And he himself immerses at night and sprinkles by day. Since we do not sprinkle until sunrise, and all of them have acted from dawn, it is valid. Okay, that's it.
Okay, yeah, and Hadron Alach, Maseches Para.
Okay.
Hey,
And
Tohoros. Maseches Tohoros would more accurately be called Maseches Tumos, but we like to call things by unpleasant names. So Tohoros is a sort of a euphemism. But this is it's going to be a lot of case studies of different forms of tumah in this Masechta. Okay. So we're starting out. No, this is
sure.
So we're starting out. We're starting out in Mishnah Aleph with the dealing with the case of dead birds. Now it depends whether they are kosher species or a non-kosher species. Okay. So what we're going to discover today is that kosher species of birds, when they become an avela, if they die without a shchita, that's so their form of tumah that they take on is actually an interesting one. They effectively become, instead of becoming an av hatumah, they become a rishon latumah, which means that which is of course one level lower. So a person does not become tameh from touching or carrying a dead chicken. Okay, but if he eats it, then a kazayas, if he eats a kazayas of it and it goes into his and he swallows it, as soon as he swallows it, it turns him into an avatoma. Okay, so now then he becomes fully tameh from it. So that's the interesting thing about it. It only makes a person tameh through swallowing it.
All right. Okay.
All right. So let's take a look into this. Shlosha asad davar benivlas ha'ofat tahor. There are 13 points of interest in this in the carcass of a kosher bird. Okay. Tzricha machshava. Now, in order for it to be matame anything or to be treated as a food, it has to be considered as a food. So, for example, if a Jew looked at this dead chicken and said, "Look, at least I can use it to feed my goyish workers," okay, that would be legit. As soon as he has the machshava and says, this dead chicken over here, I'm actually gonna feed it to my non-Jews, or I'm gonna cut it up and give it to my dogs. No. I don't know if cutting it up and giving it to dogs counts. It's got to be considered for human food, not for dog food. So he's got to actually think about it and say, okay, I'm going to give it to my non-Jewish workers. The eina tzricha hechsher. Also, once he has done that, it does not need any kind of being wet, right? That's the thing with foods and fruits, for example. If you pluck a fruit off the tree and it's never been wet since plucking it off the tree. On the tree, it can never become tameh. Once it's been plucked, it has to become wet with one of the 7 liquids. Remember, that's the whole thing of machshirin.
Right.
But when it comes to this dead chicken, its own blood is considered the machshir. Okay, so it doesn't need to have any extra hechsher before it's susceptible to tumah, once the person has had machshava about it. Umetama tumas ochlin bekabetza. So it contracts food tumah in the amount of a kibetza, and that's a standard thing for foods. Any food stuff that's smaller than a kibetza does not become tameh as a food in less than a betza. Okay, the same goes for this chicken carcass. The kazais beveis hablia. However, if somebody swallows it, then it doesn't need a kibetza; it needs just a kazais that he swallowed, and it makes the person tameh. Okay, but ochla taun harev shemesh, and not only that, but if the person ate it and now wants to become tahor, for example, let's say he wants to go to the base of mikdash, or he wants to eat his truma, he has to go to mikveh and he has to wait for the sun to go down. Okay. V'chayavim aleha al bias mikdash, and furthermore, it's a tumah d'oraisa, which means that if he goes to the mikdash before he's had harav shemesh, and kal v'chomer before he's been to mikveh, he is chayav kares for going into the base of mikdash. And what korban does he have to bring for going into the base of mikdash? See if you're alert.
An asham?
Norman,
No,
very good. It's an asham. He brings an asham oliva yored. No, it's an asham. Is it an asham? Sorry, it's called a korban or oliva yored. I don't know if it's called an asham. Okay. I don't think it's called an asham. It's an oliva yored, but it's I don't think the title is called an asham. But it's not the standard chatas, right? Okay. V'sorfin aleha is a truma, and furthermore, if he touches truma in this state, then the truma can be burned. It's not just like a suffix. Is he tameh? Is he not? And it gets suspended. This truma gets burned vadai. Okay. Va'ochel eiver min achai mimena sofeg yisar bayim. And furthermore, if somebody cut a piece off the living chicken and ate it, he's chayav for ever min achai from that. Okay. Shchitasa umalikasa mitaheres treifasa divrei Rabbi Meir. So whether shchita or shchita for a normal bird, or malika in the mikdash for kodshim, okay. Mitaheres treifasa. If you then cut it open and see that it's a treifa, okay, it does not. So according to Rabbi Meir, this bird does not carry any tumah at all. It doesn't have tumah of nevela. It doesn't have tumah of a treifa. Excuse me, tumah of a treifa. Tumah of a nevela. Beg your pardon. It's tumah of a nevela, right? It doesn't have the tumah of a nevela if it got a shchita or a malika, according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer einan mit Tohoros. Rabbi Yehuda says, nah, the shchita does not remove from it. If it was a treifa and it was shechted, it doesn't help. It's got the full tumah of an avela. Rabbi Yossi takes the compromised position, which is the halacha shchita sametaheres aval lo melikasa. We had this whole discussion in Zvachim, which we're probably going to come across soon in our chazars. So watch out for this argument, this three-way argument between Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yossi about whether shchita and malika on a bird that turns out to be a treifa removes its tumas nevela. Okay, and the halacha follows Rabbi Yossi that shchita does, but malika does not. Okay. Mishna base, ha-knafayim v'hanotza. Okay, what about its wings and its feathers? All right, so this is a discussion that we had in Maseches Uktzin, when we talk about the yad, something that's considered a handle to we were mostly talking about fruits there, right? Like when it's got a shell, or when it's got a stem or whatever,
right.
Does that shell or the stem act as a conveyance of tumah, and does it add to the shiur of a kibetza in order to make it tameh? Okay, so here talking about the wings and the feathers of this kosher bird, of this kosher carcass. Mitamos umetamos. They not only become tameh, but they also convey tumah. V'lo mitztarfos. However, they do not join on to the shear of a kibetza. So if you had So if you had like if they'd been cut off the chicken or whatever, or if it's like a very small kosher bird that may not have a kibbutz in it, like a chick, okay. If it doesn't have a kibbutz, without the wing, then the wing doesn't add to that shear. Rabbi Yishmael Omer, hanotza mitzarefes. So the reason, so that's the discussion of if it's a yad, then it joins for tumah. However, but if it's not a shomer, then the shomer adds to the shear, but this is not called a shomer. So the wings and the feathers are not considered a shomer, and therefore and only a yad, and therefore they join. They become tamei together, but they don't add to the shear. Rabbi Yishmael disagrees and says the feathers are considered a shomer. They protect the bird, and therefore they're considered a shomer, and therefore they will add to the shear. Achartum, the beak. Well, it can't be talking about the actual beak because the beak itself is not edible. It couldn't be considered food. But so what it must be is it's talking about the flesh that in the palate that adheres to the beak. Okay. Achartum v'tziponaim, and the claws. Metam'in u mitzarfim. Now those are considered not only a yad but also shomer because they do protect the flesh of the bird, and therefore they will add to the shear as well. Rabbi Yossi Omer, af roshe agapayim v'rosh hazanav mitzarfim. Also the tips of the wings and the tip of the tail also join to that shear. Shekain manichim b'patamos, because we see that we leave them in place on the fattened birds. We leave those parts of the bird on and eat them along with the bird. However, halacha in this case does not follow Rabbi Yossi. Okay, Mishnah Gimel, Nivlas ha'of ha'tameh. Now we switch subject to the kosher of a non-kosher species of bird. Okay, so now tzricha machshava v'hechsher. It not only needs machshava that a person has to decide that he's going to feed it to a goy in order to make it into a foodstuff, but it also needs hechsher. Its blood doesn't automatically make it susceptible to tumah. It needs to become wet with one of your 7 liquids, and then it will become susceptible to food tumah. Okay. Tumas ochelin b'kabeitza. And once it is susceptible, it will transmit food tumah in the size of a kabeitza, much like any other food. However, it needs the amount of a kachatzi pras, not a kazayas like a kosher bird, but a chatzi pras, which is like a half a loaf of bread, in order to make a person tamei from eating it. There's no such thing as kazayas b'beis habliya. Okay. Oh, but the kachatzi pras, lifsolet agavia she'ochel. No, that's from eating it. Yes. Okay. That din does not apply to it at all. And if somebody did eat, let's say somebody ate crow, right? That's an expression. So if somebody ate crow, he becomes tamei, but he doesn't need evening. He just needs to go to the mikvah and immediately tahor, and he can eat his truma straight away. And furthermore, he does not have to bring a korban for going into the mikdash tamei from eating this non-kosher bird. So it sounds immediately like this is a tumah d'Rabbanan.
Right.
Okay. Aval sorfin aleha esa truma. However, you do burn truma because of it. Va'ochel aver min achai mimena eno sofeg es ha'arbaim. Here's a fascinating thing, that eating aver min achai from a non-kosher bird does not make a Jew liable. However, I think I believe for a goy, we don't distinguish between kosher and non-kosher species. If he cuts from a non-kosher bird and eats from a tiz chayev. Okay. Ve'ein shchitasa metarta, and shechting a non-kosher bird has no effect at all because there's just no din of shchita by a non-kosher species. It doesn't remove any kind of tumah from it. It remains an avela because it's just never been a Shchita only removes the tumah from a kosher species. Hakirafayim v'anotza. What about the wings and the feathers? Mitamos umetamos umitztarfos. These join on. Now suddenly everyone is in agreement that these are considered a shomer as well, as opposed to the kosher species, where it's not considered a shomer. Let me see. There's a reason why it says okay. Oh, so because you don't find as many people who prepare to eat a non-kosher bird, and therefore you need to keep the all the extra parts on, like the wings and the feathers and whatever, to protect it for longer, because you don't have cold storage. Okay. And then kal v'chomer, the flesh in the beak and the claws becomes tameh and transmits tumah and joins to the shear of a kabaitza. Okay, important stuff.
Okay.
We're probably not going to have time to do all the chazaras, but let's do what we can.
So we're back to para then.
Yeah, para.
Okay. You give up. A jug of katos ash that touches sher is tahor. If you place it on top of it, Reb Eliezer declares the tahor, and the sages declare tameh. If it touched foodstuffs, drinks, or holy scriptures, it is tahor. If you place it on top of them, Reb Yossi declares the tahor, and the Chachamim say it's tameh. A person who is tahor in regard to make katos who touch an oven, if he touch it with his hand, he is tameh. But if he touch it with his foot, he is tahor. If he was standing on top of the oven and stretched his hands outside the airspace of the oven with a flask in it, and similarly, if a pole is placed on top of the oven and on it are two jugs, one on this side, one on that side, Rebbe Akiva declares the contents of the flask and jug tahor, and the Chachamim declare the contents of the flask and jug tameh. If he was standing outside the airspace of an oven and he stretched his hands to a window, it took a flask and passed it over the top of the oven, Rebbe Akiva declares the tameh, and the cage declares tahor. But if this person who is tahor for katos may stand on the top of the oven with an empty utensil that is tahor for katos in his hand, or with a utensil filled with water that is not sanctified. Is that it? Yeah.
No. I think that was it. After hey, we finished.
I did one too. After hey, we're finished. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So let's go to Nagaim.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Nagaim.
I thought you said something else. Okay. Nagaim. Okay. We have here Yud Gimel Ches.
Yes.
If a tahor would put his head and most of his body into the tameh house, it becomes tameh. If a tameh person puts his head and most of his body into a tahor house, he makes it tameh. A tahor's garment of which 3 by 3 fingerets were put into a tameh house becomes tameh. If someone put an outside piece of tameh garment into a tahor house, the house becomes tameh. If someone enters an afflicted house with his garments on his shoulder and his sandals on rings on his hands, they become tameh immediately. However, if he is wearing his garments and sandals and on his feet and his rings are on his fingers, he becomes tameh immediately. But the garments, sandals, and rings remain tahor until he stays enough time to eat a half loaf of whole bread rather than barley bread, while reclining and eating it with a condiment. Someone stood inside an afflicted house and extended his hand outside with his rings on his fingers. If he remained long enough to eat a half loaf, the rings become tameh. Someone who was standing outside and extended his hand inside the afflicted house with his rings on his fingers, Rabbi Yehuda renders him tameh immediately, but the comments say until he remains long enough to eat a half loaf. It said to Rabbi Yehuda, when his entire body becomes tameh, his clothes do not become tameh until he remains in the house long enough to eat the half loaf. Is it not logical that when he himself does not become tameh, the clothes should not become tameh either until he remains in the house long enough to eat a half loaf?
Okay.
The Mitzorah, that's it? Okay.
Yeah. Kalim.
On to Kalim. Okay. It's Bob. Hey. The following hides can become tameh with midjas tumah: a hide that one intended to use as a mat, a hide that serves as an apron, a hide that serves as a bedspread, a donkey driver's hide, a flax winner's hide, a porter's hide, a doctor's hide, a cradle's hide, a hide to cover the heart of a child, the heart of a pillow, and the heart of a mattress are also susceptible to midjas tumah. Regarding a comb maker's hide and a comb maker's hide, a comb maker's hide and a comb maker's hide, the Rebbe Eliezer said they are susceptible to midjas tumah, but the comments say they are susceptible to corpse tumah. A garment case and a garment fold are susceptible to midjas tumah. Regarding a case of purple wool and a fold for purple wool, Rishama say they are susceptible to midjas tumah, but the Beit Hillel says they are susceptible to corpse tumah. Behind that one made into a cover for utensils, tahor, but one uses for weights is tame. Rabbi Yossi said the name of his father, Ruth Tahor. Whereas further processing is not lacking, thought renders utensils tame, and wherever further processing is lacking, thought does not render utensils tame, except for a saddle cover. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Yud Dalad Dalad. Until the tabernacle was erected, Bamas were permitted and the service was performed by the firstborns. When the tabernacle was erected, the Bamas became forbidden and the service was performed by Kohanim. The most holy offerings were eaten within the curtains, the offerings of less of holiness throughout the Israelite camp. The case that came to Gilgal, and the Bamas were permitted. The holy most offerings were eaten within the curtains, and the offerings of lesser holiness could be eaten anywhere. When they came to Shiloh, the Bamas were forbidden, and there was no roof there, but a stone house beneath and a canopy of cloth above, and it was a resting place. The most holy offerings were eaten within the curtains, and the offerings of lesser holiness and Master Shani were anywhere within sight.
Okay, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to go there.
I'll finish the next two. Okay, I'll